football almost killed Messi? And Ronaldo? He almost drove himself to death because he wanted to be the best player alive. These two guys aren't the only superstars who almost lost their lives to the sport. Subscribe to the channel for more football content. Fabrice Muamba. This is one of the scariest things to happen on any pitch ever. Bolton were playing Tottenham on Saturday, March 17, 2012, in the FA Cup, when, just before half-time, Muamba fell to the floor. Everyone was confused, but a Spurs fan knew something was up. That fan was a cardiologist, and he figured out Muamba had suffered a heart attack, so he had to force his way onto the pitch. Then there was another problem. To save Muamba's life, the cardiologist and Bolton Wanderers team doctor had to risk breaking Muamba's ribs with robust CPR. Muamba's heart had stopped, and for 78 minutes, it wasn't beating. Still, the doctors weren't giving up. They did enough for Muamba to get to the hospital, and when he finally opened his eyes 2 days later, doctors feared the worst. They thought his brain had been damaged. But Muamba was a fighter. He made a complete recovery, and the footballing world is thankful for this miracle. Christian Eriksen. It was June 12, 2021. Denmark were playing Finland in their Euros 2020 fixture when suddenly it happened. Eriksen ran forward to receive the throw-in and he fell down face first. Now, players falling is hardly new to the sport, but the way Eriksen fell just wasn't normal. The referee was alarmed. He figured out what had happened, and so did Eriksen's Denmark teammates. Denmark's captain Simon Kjær dashed wildly to Eriksen, rolled him to his side and made sure Eriksen wouldn't choke on his own tongue. Denmark's doctor burst onto the pitch with the medics rushing behind. The doctor and his team said, "Not on their watch." They got to work to restart Eriksen's heart. His teammates looked hopeless and began to cry and even start praying. The players formed a circle around the player. His wife, Sabrina Kvist, couldn't take it anymore. She wanted to be near her husband, so she ran onto the pitch to be close to him. Simon and Denmark goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel held her to support her. Then a miracle happened. Eriksen came back to life after dying for 5 minutes. The doctor and his team had been trying their best for 13 minutes and they were successful. The medical team carried him off the pitch on a stretcher, and after 14 months, Eriksen was back to playing footy again. And at the top level for Brentford and later Man United. What a comeback! Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Zlatan's one heck of a guy. He has an ego that's even bigger than his football skills, and one time it got him into trouble with a serial killer. Zlatan was in Sweden and did something quite frankly ludicrous. He parked in the middle of the road. Yeah, that's Zlatan for you. He didn't even care about the police. Because of what he did, Peter Mangs, a serial killer, got a little too annoyed with the big man and wanted to take revenge. So Peter swore revenge on Ibra and rushed home to get his gun. He was determined to end Zlatan, but before he could get to where he had parked, the player had left. Peter was pissed off. He wanted to take out Ibrahimovic so he would become popular and famous. Well, Peter did get his fame, or more likely infamy, after the police eventually caught him for killing people. Thiago Silva. When Silva was in the early stages of his career, he almost lost it all. At 21 years of age, Dinamo Moscow bought Silva in 2005 and they made a deadly mistake. They didn't conduct in-depth medicals for the player and missed a crucial problem that he had. Things started to deteriorate for Silva. He couldn't even train properly. His stamina was poor and he kept coughing around the training ground. When he began to have cold sweats, his club knew something was wrong. They took him to the doctors to check, and what they discovered was pretty bad. Silva had tuberculosis, and he'd been suffering from the condition for around 6 months. The doctors said if the club had delayed bringing him to the hospital any longer, he could have died. But still, Silva wasn't out of danger yet. He couldn't even walk. He had to make a choice. Doctors told him he had to undergo surgery, but that if he did, he wouldn't ever be able to play football again. Silva was devastated. Football was his life. He couldn't bear the thought of not playing, but he didn't have an option. Eventually, he chose the surgery. But Silva had no intention of leaving football behind. He wasn't about to give up and began to play again, but slowly, easing himself into it until eventually he gained a full recovery and became an excellent centre-back with a glittering career. Cristiano Ronaldo. Everyone knows how crazy Cristiano can be when it comes to the football, and sometimes he can get too crazy, like that time he missed training? Yeah, impossible, right? But it happened. After Manchester United suffered a humiliating defeat, Sir Alex Ferguson went into beast mode on United's players, including Ronaldo. Ferguson called for an early training, and Ronaldo overslept. Damn, Cristiano's phone was blowing up. Ferguson was calling him to get him to show up, so Ronaldo knew he'd messed up. If he wanted to keep being one of the best in the world, he knew he had to get to training fast. The problem was, it was a 20-minute drive and he was already super late. But Ronaldo knew just the perfect car that would get him to training. It was his Ferrari. So he zoomed through the streets as fast as he could, but then lost control. He totaled his car and everyone was afraid, but he walked out of that accident somehow without a scratch. Ronaldo definitely double-checked his alarm for the next morning, that's for sure. Lionel Messi. Messi was expected to perform a miracle in 2017 when Barcelona played Juventus. Juve had thrashed Barca 3-0 in the first leg, and the stakes for the second leg were higher than you think. The match was a bloodbath. Tackles were flying in from everywhere. The players put everything on the pitch, with Messi ready to do anything to secure a victory for his team. But still, nothing could separate the two sides. And then Messi went to contest for the ball and jumped up. He collided with the Juventus player and landed brutally on his neck. The stadium was scared. They thought the worst had happened. Barcelona's medics ran up to the pitch and everyone was relieved. Messi was fine, but only by a small margin. He was extremely lucky. If he had fallen on his neck just 2 millimeters higher, Messi would have died. Matheus Silva. In 2017, Matheus Silva and his teammates were chilling when they decided to have some fun by swimming in Lake Tahoe. Silva was amped up for the trip to the lake, and when they got there, he jumped straight into the water, feeling like a kid again. But suddenly, Silva couldn't swim. He became weak and powerless. He was yelling for help, and his friends were making fun of him, just thinking he was goofing around. But when his head entered the water and didn't come out, they got scared. They jumped into the water after him to get him out, and when they did, he wasn't breathing. The guys didn't know what to do. They called a lifeguard who performed CPR, but Silva wasn't waking up. So they quickly called 911. Silva survived. He slipped into a coma, but woke up 2 days later. It turned out that when Silva jumped into the freezing cold water, his body went into shock, which made his heart stop. Who knows what would have happened if his buddies weren't there. Dele Alli. Ali was isolating with his girlfriend and loved ones during the lockdown. He didn't feel like sleeping and was playing pool at night. And then, around midnight, the unexpected happened. A couple of guys in masks burst into Ali's £2 million home with knives and demanding stuff from him. When Ali wasn't cooperating with them, they punched him in the mouth. Then they went around Ali's house and packed his valuables. They even beat up one of his friends who tried to fight back. Fortunately for Dele, the thieves didn't stab him or anything, but he was pretty shaken by the events, and we are not surprised. The players we've showed you in this list flirted with death, but luckily survived. Did we miss talking about anyone on this list? Let us know in the comments section, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to your channel for more.